Today I'm using glitter tape to add sparkle to my project without the mess. Hello there, Michelle Short here with Terrific Tags with Michelle. I'm here on the Altenew YouTube channel on the first and third Saturday of the month. So if you like my videos, I'd love for you to subscribe. So let's get started. For my focal point today, I'm using the Fresh Flowers die set, absolutely beautiful set. Ordinarily with the sets of dies, I do tend to put a magnetic sheet inside of the packaging so that I can pop the dies in and out quite easily. I haven't got around to doing that just yet, so I'm just lifting those off of the tape, how they come when they arrive. And I'm using two of the larger flowers and then also the leaves. And I'm going to cut them from some Crafty Necessities cardstock. So I'm using a Tide Blue for the petals, vanilla cream for the flower centres and a frayed leaf for the leaves. So I'm just placing the flower dies down first onto that Tide Blue cardstock, holding them down with some low tack tape. And then I'm just going to cut off the excess cardstock so that I can pop that in with my packaging for use on a further project. I'm then taking the frayed leaf cardstock and I'm cutting the leaves from that. So again, holding that down with some low tack tape and just cutting off the excess. And then I've got a little piece of the vanilla cream cardstock here so I can cut the flower centres. And I have got some of the flower centres already stuck in the die. I'm not actually using those particular pieces, so I'm not too concerned that they're going to be stuck in there. But if you were going to use them, you would want to remove the previous die cutting because it might not cut perfectly. So I'm just going to run those through my die cutting machine. And now I can pop all of those pieces out, and some of them got stuck into the negative portion of the cardstock and some of them just kept on to the my cutting mats here. So just removing those, and I just need 2 layers each of the flower centres, and then I'm using all of the leaves, and then I've got all of those petals there as well. To add a little depth to these die cuts, I am going to add a little bit of ink blending on top. So I'm taking the Deep Blue Seas Fresh Dye inks and I'm just using the 2 darker shades, the Tide Blue and the Starlight. These are the same shades that the cardstock is from as well, the Deep Blue Seas collection. So it's really nice that you can coordinate everything if you want to. So I'm taking the Tide Blue, and like I said, this is the exact same shade as the cardstock. So it's just going to go on a little bit darker than the cardstock colour, but it is going to fade out quite nicely once it dries. So it's going to be a little bit of a transition colour between the colour of the cardstock and then also the darker ink that I add on top. But I just wanted something in between to make sure that I get a really nice smooth blend. So I'm going in with a mini blending tool here and I'm focusing this colour towards the centre of the petals. And these ones here, I'm just focusing the colour towards the bottom of this petal here. And then I've got the 2 flowers, so I'm going to go in first with the larger flower and then I can go in with the slightly smaller flower. And I'm dabbing off the excess ink onto my sticky mat here, and then I can try and lift up some of that ink again for the next set of petals. I usually do this on a scrap piece of paper, but I've been trying to sort of program myself to add it onto the sticky mat so that I can reuse that ink as much as possible. Some people do like to do that into the lid of the ink pad. I'm not keen on that personally, so I'm trying this method out to see if it works for me. So I'm now going in with the Starlight colour. And again, just adding this towards the centre of the petals. So the centre is going to be really dark and then it's going to fade out nicely towards the tips of the petals. And that's just going to be the colour of the cardstock, which is the lightest shade. It does dry a little bit lighter, like I say, once all the ink has dried. And so it does lighten up a little bit. So I do like to go in a little bit darker than I might think I need to. I've now got the leaves here and I'm just adding the ink towards the bottom of the leaves. I'm using the Green Valley Fresh Dye ink collection today. This is a different kind of colour family than the cardstock, but I do think that they blend really nicely together. And I'm just using the two lightest shades, the Firefly and the Grass Field. And then for the flower centres, I just need the top layer to add the ink onto. And I'm using the Golden Sunset Fresh Dye Ink collection. Again, this is a different collection than the cardstock colour, but they do blend really nicely together. And I do find that blending on coloured cardstock does really blend very nicely. And it kind of negates having to kind of cover the whole area with a lighter shade and then going darker and darker and darker. You can kind of use the lightest shade of your ink as the cardstock, so it kind of cuts out a little bit of the method, which I do always appreciate. So I've added all of the ink blending on there, and I did set these aside to dry for a little while. I do find that if I try and adhere cardstock when it's wet from the ink blending, it doesn't tend to stick that well. So I just let that dry for a little while, and now I can adhere all of the layers together. And what's great about these dies is that they've got that keyhole system. So I can just line up that little keyhole one on top of each other, and they're all going to line up really nicely. I absolutely love this method. You don't need to worry about if you've got the petals in the right place or anything. They will always be in the right place. So I've added that flower centre, and then I can pop this piece on top to cover up that keyhole. And then for these ones, you technically can get them in the wrong place, but I found that if you get them slightly in the wrong place, it still looks really pretty. But I am using the back of the packaging to see where these are supposed to be. So just adding a little bit of liquid glue onto the back of that, and then I can pop that down. And then this piece just adds onto the top of the left hand side. And I'm using the liquid glue here because it does give me a little bit of time to wiggle it in place. So I can just pop that one over the top, and I just really love the shape of these flowers. I'm just using my fingertips here just to manipulate the petals a little bit, just so that they're not so flat. So that's my first flower completed, and now I can work on the second one. And for this one, you've got that triangle in the centre, and again, really easy to line up. So I've got my flower centre here. I can add a little bit of glue to that, pop that down. And then I've got the top piece to hide that keyhole system. And then I've got the two pieces again to add on for kind of like the petals are folded up on themselves. And then I can just finish off with this last piece here. And you can see that the ink has dried a little bit, and it has faded again a little bit, but it still looks really nice just to add a little bit of depth onto those petals especially. And then I can just lift those up a little bit to add a little bit of dimension. I've then cut two tags from Classic Crest £110 Solar White cardstock using the larger die from the Terrific Tags die set. I'm then taking the Enchanted Tanzanite glitter tape, and I'm going to use this to add an accent onto my tag. What I love about this tape is that there's no loose glitter at all. It doesn't kind of shed from the tape. It's really easy to use. So I'm going to add a little bit onto the left hand side of this tag here. You do have a little bit of wiggle time just to lift that back up if I don't get it in the right place, and then I can pop that down along the side. Once I'm happy, I can press that down, make sure that that's stuck down really nicely, and then I can flip over the tag and cut off the excess. I could fold it over, but I decided it would be easy enough just to cut that down. And I do think that that looks nice as is, but to make it a little bit neater for my personal taste, I'm going to add another tag on top, just to hide where that kind of glitter tape meets the cardstock. So I've got my other tag here, and I'm going to cut that down, just bring in my little mini guillotine here. And I'm just using the washi tape to figure out how much I want to cut this down. So I'm making it just a little bit smaller than the width of the tape. I'm calling it washi tape actually, but it is glitter tape. It's technically not washi tape, but it is very similar. And then just making sure that I like how that looks. And then I can add some glue tape onto the back of that tag, and then I can pop that down. And I do this quite a lot with cardstock strips on card bases. I do think it looks really nice. Just adds a little kind of extra element onto a clean and simple project. But I really love this glitter tape because I really love that added sparkle. And like I say, I'm not a huge fan of loose glitter. I think it's really messy. It's not particularly good for the environment. But in this way, it's all nicely contained in that tape. So just sticking that down, and I think that looks quite nice. I am then just going to add another tag onto the back of this one, just to finish it off nicely if I want to write a personal message on the back. I would often add that layer on the top with foam tape, like on a card, but for this I thought it was quite nice just having it flat. But I did just want to show you a couple of other examples of how you could use this tape. Again, I do this quite a lot with card bases, adding like a little strip towards the bottom. Again, it just adds a little accent, especially onto clean and simple cards. So just cutting off that excess tape there, and I'm not going to do it for this one because obviously I'm going to use the other tag, but it would just look quite nice just having it towards the bottom there and having your focal point above it. I did also think it would look quite nice to actually draw your eye into the focal point. So I'm going to add 2 strips here at a diagonal, and I think then adding something over the top then just kind of brings your eye in, and it also just adds again that little bit of sparkle just around the outside. And I've done a similar thing with lots of kind of stripes with washi tape, and I will link that video at the end of this one as well in case you wanted to watch that, because it's this kind of similar technique. So I think that would look quite nice as well, or maybe just one flower. So there's a few different ideas here of how you can use this glitter tape. And like I said, you could do like a whole lines of this tape as well, kind of across a whole card base or a tag or something like that as well. But I'm just using this one here on the left hand side. So I've got all of my elements placed down. I haven't stuck anything down at this point, but I can use that liquid glue and just pop those behind the flowers, these leaves here. I do like having everything kind of placed down like this, and then I can just adhere some, the things one by one. I know some people use like tape and things like that to kind of pick everything up in one go and then adhere everything in one go. I do find it quite nice just to adhere things as I go. Although sometimes I do then forget maybe where I've placed something, and you'll see that in a little while that I did that. But for now, I'm just adding these leaves in behind these flowers. I can then add some instant dimension foam tape onto the back of the flowers. And I wanted to keep the tops of the petals kind of folded up a little bit, like I said, to give it a little bit of dimension. So I'm just adding a little bit of foam tape here, just enough to make sure that it's stuck down really nicely. And also I obviously don't want too much foam tape. I don't want any adhesive showing on the back because these elements are overhanging the sides of the tag. So I can just do the same thing here for this other flower. And this is where I figured out I wasn't 100% certain where I actually had it in the first place. So it's just taking me a little while to figure out where I want it to be. And then I didn't like where that leaf was, so I just kind of lifted that up and moved that a little bit. And then because I ripped the cardstock a little bit as I did it, I need to add a little bit more adhesive onto the back and then just cover that up. I may have ended up leaving it where exactly it was, but in my head I felt that I'd moved it slightly. I've then stamped a sentiment from the Soft Blossoms stamp set. That's one of my favourite sets for sentiments. Although I love the image in it, I really love the font of the sentiments, and they're quite small, which I personally really like. I'm just figuring out here how much foam tape I need to add. I only want to add it onto the left hand side of this sentiment strip because it's overhanging that flower there that's already got that foam tape and dimension on it. So I've just added a little bit of glue on the right hand side, and then I can pop that down. And I'm just going to pop it down really lightly to start with, and then I can bring in my T-square ruler just to make sure that that's straight. And I stamped that sentiment onto some white cardstock with obsidian pigment ink. I can now take some black twine. I can pop that through the hole there at the top of the tag, and then I can tie that in a bow at the front. And then I can just take my time here to fiddle with that bow to get it the size that I want it. And then once I'm happy, I can cut those tails down. And then I do tend to kind of manipulate the twine a little bit with my fingers just to get it to go in the right direction. And then to finish off, I'm taking some mother of pearl gem sparkles. These are so pretty. They are white, but you've got that iridescence to them as well. Very, very pretty. And I thought that the kind of sparkle worked well with that glitter tape. I'm using the perfect picker here to pick them up so that I can place them down onto my tag. And I'm not going to lie here, this took me quite some time. I was very indecisive of where I wanted these embellishments to be. Sometimes I can picture it straight away and get them in exactly the right place, and other times it just seems to take me absolutely ages. And this was one of the times that it took me a long time. So figuring out that I want one up here, and then I'm going to bring in another of the larger ones to go at the bottom. So I place them down lightly to start with, and then once I'm happy with the placement, I can press those down and they'll just stick down really nicely. And so that is the tag finished for today. I really love having that nice kind of strip just along the edge of that glitter. It's not kind of too in your face, but it does really add a nice sparkle onto the project. Links to the products that I used will be listed in the description bar on YouTube and also over on the Altenew blog. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.
Hey there, Lydia here. I really do hope that you've just enjoyed the video. If so, please subscribe to the Altenew YouTube channel. Also, turn on the notification bell so you can get your daily dose of crafty techniques and tutorials just like this. Thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye.